So we're going to continue talking about financial literacy. In this part, we're going to be talking about credit reports and what they are and how they're determined. So we're filling in the blanks using the word bank at the top. The first one says blank is a record of financial performance, and this is a person's credit history. So once you start spending money, as you get older and open checking accounts and credit card accounts, things like that, then you start to develop what's called a credit history, and this is going to be tied to you for as long as you're alive. And so it's important to maintain a good credit history because this is what's going to determine whether you get loans at a bank and be able to buy houses and stuff like that. So you want to be aware of what determines credit history, and then you want to also make sure you check your own credit history from time to time. All right, so credit history is reflected in something called a credit report. This is a summary of your financial history, including whether payments are made on time, how much debt a person has, whether or not the person has a history of repaying his or her debt. All right, so anytime you buy like a major purchase, if you're going to buy a new house or a new car, they're going to ask you if they're going to lend you money, the bank or whoever is going to ask about your credit report or your credit history. The report is just a list of everything you've done in the past. It's going to tell them whether or not you made payments to past loans on time or not. It's going to tell you how much you owe to other people. It'll tell you if you have a history of repaying debts you've had in the past. So if you're buying a car, they want to know, did you pay the last time you had a car, did you pay those people on time? Did you finish paying off that car? Or do you have loans for 4 cars? So are you going to have a lot of debt if they decide to owe you or loan you money? So all those things are taken in consideration when a person goes to borrow money. And this report is requested by a lender or someone who loans the money. All right, so the lender is the person loaning the money, and or by a borrower, someone who wants to borrow the money. So either person can request a report. Typically, a lender is going to require it, but if you're the person wanting to borrow money, you can get a copy of this report at any time to check your own history. All right, so what you want is a positive credit history. And a positive credit history will have a high credit score, all right? So after you look at your credit history, you're given a number. It's a 3-digit number. And the higher your number, the better your credit score, all right? A negative credit history is reflected in a low credit score. So again, opposite of that is true. The lower your number, the worse or the more negative your credit history. So anytime you don't pay back a loan or you make a late payment, then that's affecting the score. That number is going down, and you want to keep it as high as you can. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is just how to order credit scores. So we want to go from least to greatest, so that would be from the most negative to the most positive. So this is going to start off with 650 and 715, 720, and 800. Okay, so this 800, typically there's no credit reports kind of differ. There's a few places you can get them, and so there's no like perfect number, but the higher, the 800s, that's a great score right there because that's pretty high. All right, and then 690, let's start with 690, 710, and then 730, and 800. All right, so again, you go from the lowest to the highest, and the highest being the person with the best credit. Okay, they're the one most likely to get the better loan. That means they're going to be charged probably less interest, or they'll be able to get a loan. You have a low credit history, then you might be denied a loan, or they might charge you higher interest because you're a risk when you borrow money. All right, next it says identify each statement as true or false. If the statement is false, underline the word or phrase that makes it false, then write the correct word or phrase that it should be. So number 3 says establishing a positive credit history allows you to borrow money for houses and cars. So positive, remember that's good. So yeah, that's true. Having a good credit history is going to make you able to borrow the money you need for bigger items. Okay, number 4, people should check their credit report periodically. This is true. You need to do this even if you're not planning to borrow money, because eventually you might have to borrow money. You want to know what's going on with your credit history, and sometimes they get things wrong, or there may be things that pop up on there that you wouldn't know about until you ran a credit history. This happened to my cousin, and if you're in class, I'm sure I'll tell you the story, but he was about to buy a house, and so of course his lender, the person, the bank, was trying to decide if he would be a good person to lend money to borrow money, because he was a borrower. And when they ran his credit report, it turns out that he had all these credit card statements that are bills that he hadn't paid, but they weren't his own. And so it turns out that my cousin's identity had been stolen, and he didn't know that until he had a credit report run. So yeah, you should check this periodically to make sure there's nothing going on there that shouldn't be going on. And then if you have a negative credit history, then you can do things or having good money skills. Okay, so maybe you start off bad. You can get more positive as the years go on. So you want to maybe check that out every now and then to see how much better you've gotten. All right, number 5 says making late payments help maintain a positive credit history. What do you think? Are late payments a good thing or a bad thing? Well, they're a bad thing. So that's not going to help your credit history. So making late payments helps maintain a positive credit history. That would be false. Okay, and you want to say making on-time payments or even early payments. Okay, if you pay off a loan early, that's a good thing. Positive credit history. All right, number 6. A negative credit action will be reflected in a credit report for 3 years. All right, so the good news is that even though there's a credit history for you, it's not, they're only going to be looking at a part of that history. So the longer or the more diligent you are about trying to maintain a positive one, even if you start off negative, that's eventually some of that bad stuff that may happen earlier is going to go away, because credit reports are only, they only go back for 7 years. So this is false. Because of this number right here, it should be 7. But the idea is true. So a negative credit action is reflected in a credit report for 7 years. So say you make a late payment on something, that's going to be on your credit report, but not forever and ever. Okay, after 7 years, that's not going to show it, or you're just not going to see that anymore. Okay, so complete each exercise using what you know about credit reports. Number 7 says to identify the 2 borrowers least likely to be offered a loan. If the decision were solely based on their credit scores, justify your response. So we're looking at the people, let's say these 4 people come to our bank, you're the banker, and you have to decide whether or not to give them a loan, right? So if you look at their scores, who are you going to pick to give the loan to, all right? Well, obviously the 2 with the highest credit score. These people right here, something went wrong, okay, in their credit. That's why their score is so low. Maybe they don't pay their loans back on time. Maybe they don't pay it at all. Maybe they have a whole lot of debt, and so they're a risk. And if you're a banker, you want to make sure you're getting your money back. So you can go with the people with the higher score. So R, Como, and D, Pan. All right, and then the homework tonight, ask an adult. Okay, so there's lots of ways to pay for college. So ask them about these ways. Number 8, what is a student loan? What is a work-study program? And number 10, what is the difference between a scholarship and a grant? And we will talk about the answers to those tomorrow. See you soon.